This is John for Global Traveler. Today I have the pleasure of talking travel with Jessica Nabongo, traveling blogger and author, and the first Black woman to visit every country. That's an amazing stat. How are you, Jessica?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. I totally want to get into everything, including your book. Love the book.
Yes,
Um, but
thank
let's
you.
start with your beginning. I read that you traveled internationally when you were 4 years old. How did that start?
Yeah, so that was the first time. So I'm from Detroit. My family is from Uganda. And if you know anything about the geography of the US, Detroit sits right across the river from Windsor, Canada. So my first international trip was to Canada. But shortly thereafter, we went to London to visit family on our way to Uganda by the time I was six. So.
Wow. So I read that again. I read because I've done a little bit of research on you. In 2016, you had already visited 60 countries, and that's when you decided to visit them all. How does that come to be?
Yeah, so that was 2017. So the thing is, I had been blogging for, at that point, I'd been blogging for like 8 years. And every year I was like filling in my map. So I've always wanted to fill in the entire map, you know? Um, and so February 2017, I was in Bali with a friend, and I was just thinking about my life and what I wanted to do. And it was then that I decided that I wanted to finish visiting every country by the time I was 35.
That's amazing. I mean, it truly is amazing. Like, do you ever stop and think about the magnitude of what that really is?
Now I do, and it's really crazy because I'm so far outside of it. So I finished visiting every country in 2019. So being this far outside of it, it is crazy. Like, anyone can name a country, and I'm like, boom, I have a memory from that country. And it really, yeah, sometimes I'm like, did I really do that? But I did because I have memories.
Well,
So.
that's the next question I was going to ask. So, whether physical or mental, do you take something away from every country? Like, if I threw a country name out, would you be able to say like, "Oh yeah, boom"?
No, not physical. Mm-mm. I mean, I have a lot, but I also don't like things. So
Okay,
like I don't like to just have useless things. So I have the memories. Now I have the book. So a lot of my memories are actually in the book, which is great because eventually, obviously, I'll forget. But one thing I did collect from a lot of places was alcohol. So my bar is very reflective of travel. Like you can see behind me, I have some artwork and things like that. But I really try to be intentional about things that I kept or even things that I purchased.
so how has travel changed you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, growing up in the US, we, of course, are inundated with like consumerism, and that just is not the same in other parts of the world. So I think traveling has reduced my consumerism, and I think it really has made me sort of understand what really matters, if you will.
Sure. Well, now I'm going to reverse the question. Since you've been a blogger for many, many years, you've visited every country, you've written a book. How do you think you've impacted travel or how other people might see travel?
Yeah, I've been at it for such a long time. Like I can see I've had a huge impact. I have been working with Condé Nast Traveler for years. I've done podcasts. I sat on their board for a while. And really just working to show corporations, publications that travelers don't look a single way. Forever, travel has been targeted at a specific audience. And I think we're seeing it changing ever so slowly. We have such a long way to go. But I know that I have been a huge part of that just in terms of a lot of publications will reach out to me for comments on things. And so whether it's the Washington Post, CNN, Condé Nast Traveler, Travel and Leisure, by my voice being in that conversation, that alone changes the conversation. You know what I mean? And so
Sure.
Condé Nast is very generous, and they constantly bring me back on the podcast. I was back on earlier this year, their Women Who Travels podcast. So I think just my pure existence and me doing everything that I do, which is really for myself, it's had an impact, and I'm so grateful and humbled by that because whether I had social media or whether I was blogging or not, I'd still be living my life the same way.
Do you have a favorite place that you visited?
No, I don't. I've been to 53 countries more than once. Like there's so many places that I love.
Is there any place that you haven't been? You know, I know you've been to every country, but is there any city or area in any country that you is still on your bucket list?
Yeah, I'm going to Alaska for the first time tomorrow, so that's really exciting. So I'm on a mission now to finish my last 6 states before my
Oh,
40th birthday. Yeah.
what are the states?
Alaska, North and South Dakota, Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska. So last month I was in Antarctica, and that was my last continent. So I said, well, let me just finish these states too.
You're, you're just checking off lists left and right these days.
Yeah.
So do friends come to you and say, "Hey, I'm going to wherever. Tell me about it. Tell me what to do." Are you
You
constantly
know
being hit?
what? Not enough, which actually frustrates me because like strangers ask me all the time for travel advice and my friends don't. And I actually get really frustrated because I'm like, why don't you use me as a resource when everyone else is? But my friends are like, I don't want to bother you. So strangers ask me more than my friends.
So let's talk about your book.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say, I haven't read the whole thing yet because I just picked it up, but I really love what I started to read. To me, it's part like diary, part travelogue, and part like encyclopedia, I guess, for lack of a better term. And what I mean is like you don't over elaborate on anything. You don't go into like boring detail. You hit it, you tell what you like about it, you give a little bit of your story in it, and then some information about it, beautiful pictures, and you move on to the next spot. I just love it. Tell us how the book came to be. How did you narrow it down to those spots?
Yeah, it was hard. And it's so funny, like definitely mostly praise around the book, but then, human nature, we see the critics and it's just like, come on. So in 2020, my editor reached out to me. She'd read a Washington Post article, which I was featured in, talking about revenge travel, post-pandemic. And after that, she Googled me and then she reached out and said, do you want to write a book for National Geographic? I was like, yes. So a lot of the major publishers had reached out to me previously. I'd had conversations with HarperCollins and Penguin and Hachette, but it never really felt right until this conversation. And it ended up being perfect. So we knew we couldn't do every country because you see how heavy that book is.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
that's 100, exactly. That's only 100 of the 195. So if we did everything, it wouldn't have worked. Like the book just would have been too big. And so for me in picking the countries, it really was about the stories that I wanted to tell. And I really thought of it as a great opportunity because we can all agree National Geographic is like the canon of travel, right?
True. Yeah.
And so for me, they don't have many Black authors in general. And so to be able to do a book like this, where it included images, I'm like, you know what? I want to highlight places people don't think about. I want to highlight Yemen. Like, when was the last time someone saw a beautiful image from Yemen or Afghanistan or Central African Republic? So I just thought it was a really beautiful opportunity to tell stories of these places that people don't often go for tourism and that generally have a negative perception. Beyond that, it was like, okay, which countries do I have really great images for? Because I didn't know I was going to write a book and I do photography, but I wasn't always focused on getting the perfect images during my travels. I was focused on the experience that I was having. So that's sort of how it came about, and it's been great. I try to, of course, it was very personal, so I include stories. I try to use a little historical context, but the hardest thing about the book was the word limit. Quite frankly, I submitted 160,000 words. They wanted 80. So they were
Oh,
gracious enough to expand the book 52 pages because I'm like, well, what do you want me to do with these words? And I still ended up losing around 40,000 words.
Wow.
So that's the thing. People don't understand, like, you see the design of the book. It was like, if it were a textbook, it would be completely different. It would have been much longer.
Sure.
But because we had to stick to the design, that was really difficult.
So what did you think when your first book landed in your hand, or when you first saw it on the bookshelf?
Well, so they send us copies in advance of the pub date. And I mean, I cried, of course. Yeah, it was amazing. I think to publish a book is such a major feat, just writing it, getting it published, having an amazing major publisher. But yeah, so to have my baby in my hands, it was amazing. And
And to
then
see others with your baby.
yes, exactly. And to have it out in the world. So like that whole first week, I got to speak to Michael Strahan on GMA about it. I was on the Today Show, Breakfast Club, a bunch of press around it. So that was great. And then to just read the positive comments on Amazon, on Goodreads, to meet people out and they're like, "Oh my God, I have your book on my coffee table." Like it's just an incredible feeling.
Well, it's on my bookshelf now. I really, like I said, I thought it was just a really perfect blend of your personality, of fact, and a little bit of storytelling. I thought it was a nice blend. I can't wait to dive into the rest of it because it's been a really quick read. I've read about a third of the book, and I've only had it for about 3 or 4 days. So I'm excited for the rest of it. Tell everybody what travel tip would you give to any potential traveler?
Yeah, my biggest travel tip is just go. I think we so often, not just in travel, but in our lives, we get so stuck in the planning phase because it's like, okay, I have to plan it. It has to be perfectly planned. And then you don't do the thing, right? Or it takes you 5 years to do the thing. Just go. You can sign up for flight deal websites like theflightdeal.com, secretflying.com, airfarespot.com. Those are great places where every day you can get deals. I also love Thrifty Traveler. And so I say chase the deal, not the destination. If you just want to go somewhere, you can find a deal where it's like, I don't know, 400 bucks to Colombia or to Paris or whatever it is, and then build it around there, especially if you're trying to save money. But my biggest thing is just go. Stop trying to plan every part of it. Just buy the ticket, book the hotel, and go.
Great advice. What's next for you, other than your trip to Alaska?
Right, Alaska, Orlando, Jamaica. No, so I'm actually working on a new book with National Geographic. It is a cookbook, so it will be 50 recipes from 50 countries. So it's all based on my food memory. So there'll be more of my stories and specific to why I picked those recipes. So it's really exciting if you have both of the books because things that you read about in the first book, you might get the recipe for in the second book. So that's really exciting for me.
Then you know what I'm going to ask. Then when that book comes out, we're going to need an update from you.
Yes, yes, yes. February 2026. So we're really at the beginning of this road, but it's coming.
Well, I'll mark it on my calendar. I'll hit you up around then, and then we'll do an update. Until then, before I let you go, tell everybody where they can find out more information about you, how they can buy the book, whatever you'd like.
Okay, so you can buy the book anywhere books are sold. Of course, Amazon, but I always say support your local bookstore. You can find out more about me at thecatchmeifyoucan.com, and you can always follow me on Instagram at Jessica Nabongo and on YouTube, The Catch Me If You Can.
Jessica, it's been a pleasure. Really, it's been fun talking to you. It's been fun learning about you, and it's been a fun time reading this book. And as we go off, I'm going to pull up a big glass of water and start diving into the rest of this.
I love that. Thank you so much, John.
Thanks, Jessica. You have a fantastic day and safe travels and fun travels to Alaska.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.